Grace Corbin is an associate organizer for environmental justice with our Minneapolis area Synod Bishop's office. And she's been working with me and I with her with our Eco-Faith Network team to help produce resources, events, and engage all the congregations in the Minneapolis area Synod to understand and hear their call to care for God's good world. Grace, so in that capacity, she works in the organizing department of our bishop's office on issues of environmental justice with the Eco-Faith Network. She's very passionate about environmental justice and always excited to learn more about the tools of community organizing. How do we engage and how do we activate? Something interesting is that Grace is, this is her second year as a volunteer of the Lutheran Volunteer Corps program. And I wanted to just say something about that because it's an exciting avenue and adventure for our young adults. So if you know young adults, you might encourage them to look up Lutheran Volunteer Corps. It's a program that operates in 7 cities and it places young adults in different nonprofit organizations for a year where they serve full-time, developing their skills and building connections. Grace graduated from Augsburg University in the spring of 2017 with a degree in youth and family ministry and a minor in peace and global studies. She grew up in the ELCA. Her father, Craig Corbin, is a pastor in Arizona. All right, I'll stop talking about you, Grace. Anyway, let's welcome Grace. I'm so eager to hear her message for us today.
Thank you, Chris. Pastor Chris. Sorry, I'm used to calling him Chris. Anyway, just to add a little bit about Lutheran Volunteer Corps, I have been part of this program for the last 2 years, and it's a program to bring young adults into community with other young adults and working towards social justice. It's a really great program to kind of jumpstart and really think about what is our calling in this world? What are we meant to do, and who are we meant to be? So that's just a little plug for Lutheran Volunteer Corps. But now I will start. Thank you so much for having me today. So yesterday, I helped out my alma mater, Augsburg University, with the Campus Kitchen program. The Campus Kitchen program takes food that isn't used on campus and other places throughout the neighborhood and other campuses such as Hamlin and some other places, and gives that food back to the community through community meals, food distributions, and other measures. So yesterday, I helped with gleaning at the farmer's market. So essentially, what gleaning is a few volunteers go to a farmer's market and we go around and ask produce vendors if they would like to donate any of their extra food to us. And that food then is brought to people, usually in low-income neighborhoods who do not usually have access to fresh produce. And so we leave this farmer's market. Yesterday we left with probably 3 boxes full of cucumbers, and leave with this delicious fresh produce then is given out to some people who are in need of that fresh produce. And this happens all summer through the fall. When I was at Augsburg, I used to do this shift every week, my senior year, in the summertime, of course. And every week, it would remind me of the abundance of what God provides for us. And after this week, having reflected on the gospel text and working at the farmer's market again for the first time in a couple of years, I was brought back to that same feeling of abundance, in this case, food, that God gives people. In the text for today, we are continuously reminded that God provides for us. It says, "But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today, and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, you of little faith? And you do not keep striving for what you are to eat and what you are to drink, and do not keep worrying. For it is the nations of the world that strive after all these things, and your Father knows you need them." God provides for us. How much more clearly can that be written? God provides, and in turn, we are given an abundance. One issue I find with this narrative around the claim that God provides, is that consistently when I hear about it, it seems it's talked about God provides for people. At least traditionally, growing up, we talk about, well, God is giving people abundance. But when we look at the text for today, we see that God not only provides for people, but describes in detail how creation is provided for as well. It says, "Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. God provides for even the ravens." And further, consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. God clothed the lilies in something more beautiful than anything Solomon, a wealthy king, ever wore. God doesn't just provide for people, but also provides for all of creation. Now, how does this claim make us look and think differently about our relationship to creation? To take one step back, one narrative that distorts our relationship with creation is one of scarcity. This idea that we do not have enough resources to go around, so we must hoard the resources so we will have enough to live. This narrative is damaging to how we relate to and think about creation. We know that we have enough resources for people and for creation. It is just a matter of using our resources of creation only as much as we need. Walter Brueggemann, a prominent Old Testament theologian, says, "The power of the future is not in the hands of those who believe scarcity and monopolize the world's resources, but it is in the hands of those who trust God's abundance." This claim that God provides for and gives abundantly to people, and provides for and gives abundantly to creation, is something I think is not considered much in our very human-centered society. I think part of the reason God's abundance for creation is overlooked is that many people, no doubt including myself, get caught up in the idea that creation is a resource, something for people to consume. This idea of making everything a commodity feeds into the narrative that creation is just for consuming, and I would argue feeds into our scarcity mindset. The idea that creation is simply but a resource and not something inherently good by itself. It is, I believe, a misunderstanding of the gospel that is proclaimed to all of creation. One claim that challenges us to think a little differently about our relationship to creation is the fact that we, people, are created in the image of God. In fact, the claim that people are created in the image of God is essential to how we need to understand how we are to operate in this world. To be created in the image of God means that we are to look upon creation as God looks upon creation. For Douglas John Hall, a contemporary theologian, this means that people are to be with creation. People are unique, but are to stand in solidarity with, to accompany creation. We know that God created this beautiful earth, not only for people to prosper, but all creation to prosper. This must inform us in how we relate to creation, that we are to preserve, protect, conserve, and give back to this beautiful earth gifted to us. Now, clothed with this understanding of people with creation, I want to take it one step further and challenge you to think about yourself as a co-creator with God. We are not only people who are to be in creation, but we are called to create and bring life to all of creation. This is a huge responsibility, yes, but I dare say that we are called to be these people of co-creation, to be inventors, to be writers, to be playwrights, actors with all of creation. As co-creators, we have a lot of power. And so being co-creators does not give us the right to dominate and destroy, but this power, this responsibility, this gift from God gives us an opportunity to step forward and take on the call to be stewards in whatever unique way or gifts that you bring to all creation. I think we forget sometimes how much power we truly have. Being created in the image of God grants us a lot of power. And it is a question of how we decide to steward that power for the good of the world and for the good of creation. So all of this begins with a reorienting of who we are and whose we are, and how we live because of whose we are. We know that we are children of God, created in the image of the Most High, and we know that we are co-creators with God. Now we must continue to remember that because of this identity, because of who we are called to be loving toward all of creation. Living out your love for creation can start by enjoying time outside, picking up trash, or maybe joining a protest. Wherever the beginning place is for you in your journey in relating to creation, it is integral that we remember who and whose we are, children of God. And I believe that naming and claiming that identity will lead us down a path in which we all see creation as good and abundant. Once we understand creation to be good and abundant, may we live into our calling as co-creators and children of God, stewarding, protecting, cherishing creation as God does. Amen.